This happened just last summer. I was 32 and had just moved back to my hometown after losing my job in the city. I thought that coming back would help me find some peace. But the town felt strange. I walked down the streets and past shuttered storefronts. There were vacant lots overgrown with weeds. The old park where I used to play was still there, but looked neglected, just like everything else. The quietness was deep, and it made me uneasy. The first night was normal. I was unpacking boxes in my childhood home when I heard it, a low groan drifting in from the direction of the cemetery. It could have been a raccoon, I thought. Still, my heart raced and a tightness settled in my chest. I brushed it off and returned to unpacking. Over the next few days, the groans grew louder. I could hear them at odd hours, almost like they were calling out to me. I sat by the window, looking at familiar sights, but feeling anything but comforted. Shadows moved outside, just out of my sight. The folks around town walked by, but they seemed different. They moved slow, their expressions empty and drawn. I didn't know what to make of it. One morning, I decided to take a walk in the park. I wanted to see if my old friends would show up, but the swings creaked in the wind. I felt cold and alone. People whispered about missing pets and strange gatherings. When I tried to talk to a neighbor, she just stared blankly at me. As days blurred together, fear crept in. I thought I knew these people, but I was wrong. They moved down the street like they were on autopilot, eyes glazed over. One evening, I stood in the kitchen, gripping the counter while I stared out the window. A couple of figures approached my house. They looked different. That night, I felt uneasy enough to shut the curtains. But something pushed me to keep looking outside. I saw them again, gathered near the cemetery, whispering in low voices. I couldn't tell if they were humans or something else. Maybe they were sick, or maybe something darker was happening. Then I heard the groans again, louder this time, almost as if they were rising from the ground. I glanced outside, feeling that tightness in my chest return. I didn't know if I should run or confront whatever lurked out there. Then I heard a voice. "Lucas!" It sent chills down my spine. I froze, my heart raced. Nobody was there. The next day, the groans were even closer, echoing in my head. I stepped outside, hoping to figure out what was going on. I caught the same figure across the street. It turned and smiled, but it wasn't right. The smile looked wrong, almost twisted. I stepped back, bumping into the porch railing. Behind me, I saw the gathering again, more people standing together, my gut twisted. What were they doing? I felt like I had entered a nightmare where everything was familiar, yet terrifying. And then I knew. My hometown was uncomfortably quiet for a reason. Something had changed, and I was afraid it wanted me too. I didn't sleep well that night. Every groan from the cemetery seemed to reverberate through the walls of my childhood home, scratching at the edges of my sanity. When morning finally arrived, I found myself staring at my own reflection in the bathroom mirror, eyes wide, hair disheveled. What was happening to me? I decided to confront the oddness head-on. I'd go to the cemetery and see if I could find out what was making those noises. As I walked through my old neighborhood, the typical sounds of children playing and cars driving were absent. The air felt thick and heavy. The cemetery loomed ahead. My heart raced as I crossed the wrought iron gate. The groans were definitely louder now, carrying a weight that felt almost suffocating. I glanced around, trying to spot anyone who might be there. The place was empty, but I had a distinct feeling that I wasn't alone. I hesitated, but the sound grew louder, almost beckoning me. I stepped deeper into the cemetery, my shoes crunching against the gravel. Each step felt like a dare, challenging my resolve. I passed familiar gravestones, the names barely recognized, friends, neighbors, all laid to rest. Yet I felt nothing, just that eerie sense of being watched. Then, I spotted something out of the corner of my eye. A figure near a cluster of headstones, their back turned to me. It seemed like a woman, her hair flowing lightly in the breeze. "Excuse me," I called, voice trembling. No response. I walked closer, the groaning intensifying as I neared. Just as I got within a few feet, she turned slowly and my blood ran cold. It was a face I almost knew, hollow cheeks, sunken eyes that looked straight through me. "Lucy," I gasped, recognizing my childhood friend who had disappeared years ago. "What happened to you?" I stammered. She just smiled, that same twisted smile. The laughter that escaped her lips was hollow, an echo of my childhood. It sent chills down my spine. Before I could process what I was seeing, the others appeared from behind the gravestones. Faces I recognized from my past, all wearing those same eerie smiles. They began to whisper, low and haunting. My name floated through the air, twisted and distorted. "Lucas," they called. I stumbled backward, fear pooling in my gut. This wasn't just a reunion of old friends. Something twisted had happened to them. Something sinister. I turned to run, heart pounding, but the figures blocked my path. They moved with an unnatural grace, almost gliding toward me. Their eyes were empty voids, yet they were filled with something, a yearning or hunger I couldn't understand. The groans crescendoed into a deafening roar, drowning out everything around me. Then, all at once, the ground beneath me trembled. I looked down. Something was rising from the earth itself. My mind raced. I had to get out of there. I broke into a sprint, feet pounding against the graves, breath ragged. I could feel the shadows closing in behind me. Just as I reached the gate, a hand grabbed my shoulder. I yanked free and burst out into the sunlight, but then I turned around. The cemetery lay quiet again, as if nothing had happened. The figures were gone. I stood there, panting and disoriented. Had it really been them? Or was it my mind playing tricks amidst this chaos? I knew one thing. Something dark was tied to this town, and it was waiting for me to uncover it. And it was closer than I ever imagined. The next few days passed in a blur. I tried to shake off the encounter, chalking it up to an overactive imagination. But that nagging fear wouldn't let go. Every time I closed my eyes, I could see Lucy's hollow smile. I needed answers. I decided to visit the local library. It had been years since I'd stepped inside, but I hoped to find some clues about what had happened in my hometown. As I entered the familiar building, dust motes floated in the sunlight. The air was thick with the smell of old paper and ink. I headed straight for the back where the archives were kept. Old newspapers lined the shelves, whispering secrets of a time long gone. I pulled out several articles, skimming through headlines of accidents, mysterious disappearances, and a strange illness that had swept through the town years ago. Each page felt like a piece of a puzzle, but none of them could explain what I'd seen. Hours passed, and just as I was about to give up, I found a small article tucked between sheets of yellowed paper. It spoke of a tragic event, a severe storm that had struck the town the summer Lucy had disappeared. After the storm passed, several children went missing, and the town had been on edge ever since. I felt a chill run down my spine. That night, I couldn't shake the feeling that I needed to confront my past. I returned to the cemetery, clutching a flashlight and an old photo of Lucy and me from better days. It was a desperate attempt to reconnect with something real. As I made my way through the gravestones, the memories flooded back. I remembered how carefree we used to be. But then came that storm, the storm that changed everything. I reached Lucy's grave, the weathered stone sending a shiver through me. I knelt, brushing away weeds, feeling a strange compulsion to speak. "I miss you," I whispered, my voice trembling. "What happened to us?" The wind picked up suddenly, chilling the air. I felt a change, like the atmosphere was shifting, thickening around me. That groaning sound rose again, echoing from the earth. Panic struck me as I realized I wasn't alone. Shadows gathered, swirling around the cemetery like a thick fog. That's when I saw it. Emerging between the gravestones was a figure, much like Lucy, but wrong in so many ways. The hollow cheeks, sunken eyes, they looked almost alive, yet oh so dead. My heart raced as I called out, "Lucy, is that you?" The figure tilted its head, a grotesque smile spreading across its face. The laughter that followed was not the joyful sound I remembered. It was a taunting, unsettling sound that echoed in my ears. Before I could react, the shadows around me thickened and more figures began to slink from the ground. They radiated a hunger, a longing that twisted my stomach. I turned, ready to flee again, but the realization hit me. This wasn't just a figment of my imagination. I stumbled back, breathless, as I fought the urge to scream. If they were emerging from the earth, what did that mean? Were they trying to send a message? Or was it something far worse? Something that had slipped through the cracks of my forgotten past. And then, I felt something cold wrap around my ankle. I looked down in horror, frozen in place, as I faced whatever darkness had come to claim me. I could hardly process what I was feeling. A cold tendril grasped my ankle like ice, and I fought the urge to scream. The weight of the night bore down, stretching time into a slow torment. The laughing figure of Lucy, if that's even who it was, hovered, eyes glinting with a sinister hunger. I yanked my foot free, stumbling backward, tripping over roots and gravestones. My instincts screamed at me to run, to escape the waking nightmare. The laughter echoed, a mocking sound that curled around me as I turned and darted away from the graves. I barely made it to the path when I heard whispers snake through the air, undulating like the fog. "Come back. We want to play." The words sent chills along my spine, memories flashing of Lucy's innocent laughter before the storm took her from me. A few yards down the path, I stumbled into the thick trees lining the cemetery. I felt their weight closing in around me. My flashlight flickered, barely illuminating the shadows that swayed and whispered. I could hear movement behind me, the sound of soft footsteps brushing against the ground. I turned the flashlight back, expecting to see the ghoulish figures closing in on me, but the beam revealed only trees, dead, gnarled branches reaching out like skeletal hands. I thought I might be losing my mind. Could there be a rational explanation for all this? My heart beat louder than my thoughts, drowning out any sense of reason. I dashed deeper into the forest. My thoughts raced. Maybe I was just imagining all of it. Maybe the rumors had gotten to me. But there was something about those shadows. They felt all too real. Yet if I was losing my grip on reality, where did that leave me? In the distance, the howls grew louder, resonating through the woods, twisting into something almost human. I stumbled again, falling to my knees. As I got back to my feet, the flashlight clunked against something hard. I picked it up, revealing it to be an old, tarnished locket. It was small, elegant, and chillingly familiar. I opened it, revealing a picture inside. Lucy and me, bound together in a frame from long ago. "Lucy!" I shouted into the void, desperation creeping into my voice. "What did you do?" The air around me thickened, as if responding to my plea. I felt the ground tremble softly, almost as if it were alive. I backed away from the sensation, searching for something, anything to hold on to. Then I saw them again. The shadows were forming, gathering to take shape. I wanted to run, but my feet felt planted in place, glued to the earth. They hovered, swirling and gesturing towards the trees. Their mouths moved, but no sound came out. It was an invitation, a beckoning, and I was terrified of what lay ahead. "Get back!" I shouted, but my words felt weak, swallowed by the hungry night. As I prepared to make a break for it, the ground shook violently, and I crouched low in fear. A bright flash burst through the trees and lit up the night. Then everything went dark. I woke in a cramped space, the air stale and heavy. My heart raced, but I couldn't remember how long I'd been unconscious. I fumbled for something to grab onto, my hands brushing against cold, damp earth. Panic clawed at my chest as I tried to sit up. It felt like I'd been buried alive. With a surge of adrenaline, I pushed against the ground. I scrambled to my feet, half expecting to see the shadows swirling again. Instead, I found myself in a small clearing surrounded by low-hanging mist. The remnants of the moon slipped through the trees, casting ghostly shadows. "Where am I?" I whispered, scanning the eerie landscape. It was too quiet. No howls, no laughter echoed through the trees. Just silence. A suffocating silence that sent new chills racing down my spine. My flashlight lay beside me, eerily still. I grabbed it, hoping it would steady my nerves. I turned it on, the beam cutting through the mist. The light landed on a clearing not far from my position. Something was there, glinting in the weak luminosity. I stepped forward, my nerves tingling with apprehension. As I approached, the glint revealed itself to be a small, rusted sign, half buried in the dirt. With trembling hands, I wiped away the dirt. It read, "Stay back, cursed ground." A cold sweat broke out on my brow. I felt my heart drop. What did that even mean? I turned around, scanning the trees again. Was this a sick joke? The echoes of Lucy's laughter rang in my ears, mingling with the whispers I had heard before. Then I noticed movement out of the corner of my eye. I spun my flashlight toward it, and my blood went cold. There were figures again, but they were different than before. These were not the faceless shadows from the cemetery. They were distorted, shuffling shapes with vacant eyes, dragging limbs as they stumbled towards me. Fear surged within me. These weren't just shadows, they were something else entirely. I needed to run. I took a step back, moving away from the rusted sign, but the figures advanced faster. Their mouths opened and closed, but instead of sounds, a low, guttural growl came from deep within. I turned to escape, but the mist seemed to thicken, slowing my movements. I sprinted back into the trees, branches clawing at my skin. The figures followed, their growls echoing, weaving strangely through the fog. I stumbled into a narrow path, a split in the forest that led deeper into the unknown. I took it, desperate for any way out. My lungs burned as I pushed harder, glancing back only to see those hollow eyes getting closer, their intent crystal clear. "Why are you doing this?" I shouted, but the words were lost in the darkness. Just then, I caught a glimpse of something flickering ahead. It was a light, warm, and inviting. Was it real? That hope flared briefly and pushed me to run faster. But as I reached out for the light, I suddenly felt strong hands grasp my arms, pulling me back. I screamed, the sound tearing through the night, but it only seemed to draw the figures closer. In that moment, I realized I was not alone, and this nightmare was just beginning. I struggled against the grasp, panic fueling my movements. I twisted and jerked, finally breaking free and stumbling forward, but the warmth of the flickering light felt further away now. The shadows behind me shifted, their growls rising like a chorus of nightmares. I sprinted toward the brightness. It seemed slightly more substantial as I neared, the source becoming clearer. It wasn't just a light, it was the glow of a fire. I could make out shapes dancing around it. Was it friendly, or another trap? The fire flickered, casting long shadows against tall trees, and I saw more figures. At first, they looked like the shuffling creatures behind me, but then I noticed they were different. They stood upright, human-like, and were facing the fire. They seemed unaware of my presence, or perhaps they were simply too caught up in whatever trance held them. I hesitated, my breath ragged, the growls still echoing through the mist. Should I approach them or circle around? My instincts screamed to take my chances with the strangers. If they were human, they could help me. "Hey!" I called, my voice shaky but desperate. I broke through the clearing and rushed closer. "Help! Please!" The figures turned slowly, their faces illuminated by the fire. I froze, realizing they were just as distorted as the shadows that hunted me. Their features were twisted, the skin pale and stretched taut over bones. Their eyes, however, weren't empty. They glimmered with a strange, knowing light. One stepped forward, tilting its head as if studying me. "You shouldn't be here," it said, its voice low but surprisingly calm. "You're in danger." "Danger? From what?" I asked, scanning the edges of the clearing where the darkness loomed thick. The creatures were still coming. I could hear their growls growing louder, closer. "From them," the figure nodded toward the shadows. "The abandoned. They seek fresh souls to fill their ranks." I stumbled back slightly, fear gripping my heart. Fresh souls? What did that even mean? Fresh souls? I don't understand. What do they want from me? "They want to claim you," the figure said. "You have an energy they need." Its unnerving smile cracked, revealing jagged teeth. I turned, scanning the trees, the growling echoing menacingly. How long did I have before they'd reach me? "Please, I just want to get out of here." "Listen," the figure continued, its voice now urgent. "If you want to leave, you have to come with us. The fire protects you, but not for long. We can guide you back, but you must trust us." I glanced at the shifting shadows creeping at the edge of the clearing. The growls were closer now, hungry. I felt the weight of my decision. Could I trust these twisted beings? Then, out of nowhere, a bone-chilling screech rang through the air. The sound sent ripples of terror down my spine. Suddenly, the shadows lunged forward, their distorted silhouettes breaking through the mist like a wave crashing against a shore. "Now!" the figure shouted. Just as I made my choice, the world around me tilted. The ground trembled and the fire flickered dangerously. That's when I saw it, a way deeper into the forest, a narrow path behind the figures. My heart raced. Would I survive to make it to safety, or was I trading one nightmare for another? The figure grabbed my wrist, pulling me closer to the path. "This way." I stumbled but kept pace. The shadows were moving, rushing toward the fire like they were drawn to its warmth, desperate, chaotic. We dashed past the flames into the darkness of the trees. The further we went, the more the growls faded behind us. My heart pounded in my chest, relief and fear battling for the upper hand. "Wait," I gasped, trying to catch my breath. "Who are you?" "I'm known as Nira," the figure replied, looking back at me. "We were once like you, but we have been changed. The forest has its ways." I blinked, trying to make sense of the surreal situation. "Changed how? And what do you mean by the forest?" "The shadows, the abandoned, they're relentless. They were once humans, but over time, they've lost their purpose. Now they hunger for life, for energy, just like yours." Nira's gaze was piercing, making the hairs on my arms stand on end. "What do you want from me?" I asked, panic creeping back in. "Why take the risk to help me?" "We want to protect you," another figure added, stepping from the foliage beside us. "You can still escape, but only if you can resist them." "Resist? How could I possibly do that?" My thoughts raced, and uncertainty flooded my mind. "I don't even know how I got here. I was just—" "Listen," Nira interrupted, her voice fierce. "There's a safe place, but it's deep in the forest. You must stay close to us. There are traps, illusions. They'll try to deceive you." Just then, the earth trembled beneath our feet, and the ground split open, revealing a dark, gaping maw that seemed to beckon me. I stumbled back, nearly tripping over roots. Was it a trap? It felt alive, pulsing with a sinister energy. "Run!" one of the figures shouted. I didn't need to be told twice. I dashed forward, adrenaline surging through my veins as we navigated over and around twisting roots and thick underbrush. My breath came in ragged gasps, but that darkness behind us strained to reach out, its howls growing louder, more desperate. Then I heard a scream, different from the growls. My heart dropped. One of the figures had lagged behind. I glanced back just as it was swallowed by shadow. "Don't look back," Nira urged, grabbing my arm again. I couldn't tear my gaze away from the chaos behind me. That shadow had engulfed them, leaving nothing but a whisper of air. I felt a creeping dread. "What if they catch us too?" I whispered, trembling. "They won't," Naira assured me, but I could hear the uncertainty in her voice. We broke through a wall of brambles into a small clearing filled with strange glowing flowers. It felt safer here, almost inviting. But as soon as we entered, the whispers began, curling around the trees, intertwining with the flowers. Then everything went silent. The stillness forced me to look at Naira. "What now?" My voice was barely above a whisper. She pointed to a stone altar at the center of the clearing. "There, you must channel your energy. It will give you strength to resist the abandoned." Before I could protest or even question how, the shadows burst into the clearing behind us. Their figures loomed larger, stretching towards us with outstretched clawed hands. "Do it now," Naira urged, shoving me toward the altar. I hesitated, fear threatening to paralyze me. But just as their growls rose to a deafening pitch, something deep inside me ignited. I felt the heat and power unfurling towards the shadows. Whatever was about to happen would either save me or seal my fate. I placed my hands on the cool stone of the altar, feeling the rough texture under my palms. It hummed with energy, a strange pulse that seemed to resonate with my racing heart. The shadows crept closer, their distorted shapes mocking me, eager to devour my light. As I closed my eyes, I focused on the warmth within me, trying to summon every ounce of courage I had. "Fight," I chanted to myself. The shadows squirmed like living smoke, their whispers curling around my mind, trying to find a way in. "Channel it," Naira shouted, her voice slicing through the cacophony of growls and hisses. I could feel her presence just behind me, strong and determined. I envisioned the energy as a bright light pushing against the darkness, testing its limits. In that moment, I felt a surge. The energy expanded from my core, radiating outward. The shadows recoiled, howling in frustration as the light pushed against them. I opened my eyes in shock. It wasn't just heat, it was power, my power. A wave of fear washed over me, remembering the figure that was lost. I couldn't let that happen to me. I wouldn't. With every ounce of strength, I pushed harder against the dark mass, and suddenly, the shadows began to dissipate, retreating like spilled ink on water. But then I noticed something. I could see other figures among the shadows, faces twisted in agony and despair. My heart sank. Were these the abandoned Naira spoke of? What had they lost to be reduced to this? My resolve faltered for a moment, but I quickly steeled myself. "Don't listen to them," Naira called out. "They'll trick you. Keep pushing them away." Guilt pricked at me as I realized they were once like me, trapped in their twisted forms. But I couldn't help them, not now. I was still fighting for my own survival. Just then, a piercing shriek sliced through the air, more urgent than anger. I glanced back to see a new shadow emerging from the tree line. This one was massive, towering above the rest, with a dark, roiling mass that seemed to pulse with malevolence. My breath quickened again. "They're sending in their strongest," Naira warned, her voice fraying at the edges. "Concentrate." The pressure mounted around me, a tangible weight pressing down as the shadows clawed to reach me. I concentrated harder, pouring every ounce of emotion into my light. I had to separate myself from their agony, stop myself from being swept away. But then the massive shadow lunged, and I felt an overwhelming chill wash over me. It was as if ice gripped my soul, slamming into my chest with searing intent. I faltered, and for a brief moment, I felt my light dimming, a whisper of defeat. And that's when I saw it. A flickering ember of light buried deep within the shadow's mass. It pulsed weakly, like a heartbeat pleading for salvation. "Think! You can't fail now." Naira's voice rang out in alarms, charging me with renewed energy. My decision crystallized. I couldn't just defend myself. I needed to resist them all. I drew in a deep breath, widening my stance. I reached out, not just against the encroaching darkness, but toward that faint glimmer inside it. With a surge of will, I thrust my energy forward with urgent focus, aiming for the flicker. It seemed to resonate back, the connection spiraling through the shadow like a chain reaction. A crack ran through the mass, splintering the darkness, fracturing the hold it had over itself and the others. But with that connection came something else. It felt as if I had opened a floodgate. Color, light, and warmth poured forth, but so did screams, of both torment and relief. "Keep going!" Naira yelled, her tone fierce. Before I could grasp fully what was happening, I felt a sudden pull at the edges of my consciousness. The shadows began to twist and writhe as the darkness fought to reclaim its lost energy. Would it be enough? Or had I awakened something worse? The ground trembled underfoot, and the air thickened with energy. Then everything went dark. I gasped for breath as darkness swallowed me whole. The silence felt suffocating, pulling me deeper into an unfamiliar abyss. My heart raced, and panic clawed at my insides. I couldn't just drift in the dark. I needed to find my light again. Suddenly, a flicker sparked in the void, pulling me towards it. I focused, straining against the weight of shadows, and pushed myself forward. A dim outline materialized, an old stone pathway. My fingers brushed against the cold stones, grounding me. I wasn't entirely lost yet. "Naira," I whispered, my voice trembling. The shadows felt distant, but still tangible, a reminder of what I was fighting. I took a step ahead, cautious. "Where are you?" "Over here!" Her voice cut through the darkness like a beacon. I followed the sound, desperation fueling my steps. I rounded a corner, and there she was, her figure illuminated by a faint glow. "What happened?" I asked, desperation clinging to my words. "I think we destabilized them, but we're not safe yet." Her eyes darted around, scanning the shadows that seemed to flicker and twitch with life. "We need to keep moving before they regroup." The realization hit me like a cold wave. The fight wasn't over. I was still in danger. I glanced past her, the shadows coiling like serpents at the edges, waiting for an opening. "What do we do?" Naira stepped forward, determination etched into her features. "We have to reach the portal. It's our only chance to escape, but we need to hurry." A guttural growl echoed from the darkness, sending a chill down my spine. A massive shadow surged forward, higher and more menacing than before. I staggered back, dread settling in my stomach. I hadn't thought they could come back this quickly. "They're multiplying," I murmured, panic rising again. "What if we can't make it?" "Stop," Naira shouted. "Focus. Use the light you created. It's still with you." Before I could think about it, I remembered the warmth I had felt. I closed my eyes, willing that energy to flow through me again. I envisioned the light swelling, filling the emptiness around me. The shadows writhed and shrieked as I released it, pushing against the darkness. The ground trembled beneath me, but this time I stayed rooted. The light stung my palms, igniting with newfound strength. "We can do this!" I shouted, opening my eyes. The shadows hissed, reluctant to retreat. But with each beam of light that burst from me, more cracks appeared in their mass. I focused on Naira, urging her to join me, to pull together. She stepped up beside me, her hand covering mine. "Together," she whispered. The warmth doubled, and the shadows recoiled as if burned. I could feel the air crackling around us, building pressure with the flicker of strength. For a moment, I thought maybe we could force them back, push through this nightmare. But suddenly, a piercing wail cut through the air, new, aggressive. "What was that?" I asked, dread pooling in my stomach. "I don't know, but it doesn't sound good." Naira's eyes widened in fear. The shadows seemed to convulse, roiling and twisting, as a giant shape emerged from behind them. It was more a presence than a form. I froze, my heart racing. This shadow radiated anger, an overwhelming force. "We're not done yet," Naira urged. "We have to run." But as we turned to flee, the ground shuddered violently beneath our feet, and I stumbled. My path to escape was blocked by the very shadows I'd tried to fight, trapped. "Now what?" I breathed, panic flooding in. And just like that, I realized something nightmarish. There were no answers left to find. I was about to face the horror head-on. The shadows closed in, their shapes twisting and undulating with every heartbeat. I stood frozen, the oppressive weight of darkness pressing against me. But something inside me snapped. I couldn't just give in. Not now. "Naira," I yelled, my voice cracking. I clenched my fists, feeling that warm energy pulsing from within. I had to be strong. "What do? We can't let it take us." Nira's gaze flickered with determination. "We fight. Channel your light. Focus on what you care for." I thought of Lucy, of the town I once loved, of the carefree days long gone. The memories ignited a fire within me. I thought of the pain of losing my friends, of families torn apart by a past I couldn't understand. Somehow, that connection surged through me, piercing the void. I extended my hands, palms facing outward. The energy surged, sparkling in the darkness like fireflies. The shadows hesitated, caught between their hunger and my emerging light. With every ounce of will, I pushed it outward. "Together!" Naira shouted, joining me. We stood side by side, bracing ourselves against the impending assault. The grotesque silhouette before us lurched, letting out a howl that echoed like thunder. Light erupted from us, cascading forward like a wave. I could feel its warmth against my skin, but shadows fought back, clawing and grasping at the edges, trying to snuff out the light. The shadows wailed as I pushed harder, feeling the resonance of strength and purpose wrapping around me. "That's it! Don't let them in!" Nira shouted, her voice roaring over the chaos. I squeezed my eyes shut, pouring everything I had into the light, envisioning the darkness dissipating with each outburst of energy. Suddenly, a series of sharp gasps gashed through my thoughts. I didn't know if it was them or us, but the air became electric, and the darkness began to recede, crumbling beneath my force. When I opened my eyes, the monstrous shadow swirled and writhed, slowly unraveling like mist in the dawn. A scorching beam shot through the center, illuminating twisted faces and forms trying to escape the piercing light. But I couldn't stop now. In one final push, I felt the buildup of energy erupt from me, sending a blinding flash that pushed the shadows back, fracturing them into pieces of darkness. The wails transformed into whispers, merging into a chorus of lost souls and fading into the forest. But just as victory coursed through my veins, an eerie calm descended. The last remnants of darkness curled back, retreating like smoke in the wind. My breath hitched. Had I done it? Had I truly reclaimed the light? I think we did it. My voice shook in disbelief, gazing around at the clearing, empty now, stripped of its haunting presence. Naira took a deep breath, her shoulders easing, a mixture of relief and thought clouding her eyes. "For now," she said, "but the darkness may rise again. We must stay vigilant." A new wave of unease crept over me. Relief mingled with uncertainty. I scanned the night, questioning if this was truly the end. What lingered in the shadows? Was it really over? "Where do we go from here?" I asked, feeling vulnerable as I looked at Nira. "There's a place where light persists," she replied softly. "It's not far, but you have to promise me you won't lose faith. The forest whispers temptingly. It will try to distract you." I nodded, still trembling from the aftermath, yearning for the chance to reclaim my life, not just from the darkness I had faced, but from the weight of everything I had lost over the years. As we walked, I thought of Lucy. Her memory felt lighter now, faint but persistent. There would always be unanswered questions, shadows lurking on the periphery of familiarity. But with each step forward, I understood something profound. Light and darkness coexisted in every being, but resilience could forge a way out. I glanced back one last time, hesitant. The darkness might resurface, but I had faced it before. It would always be a part of this town, perhaps a part of me. I carried a new awareness, a choice, and though the mystery remained, I would continue walking into the uncertain light that beckoned me forward. I moved towards the unknown, ready for whatever lay ahead, and hoping that perhaps one day I would understand it all. But for now, I just wanted to escape into the warmth of the dawn.